Well, I wasn't expecting distractions today. Ugh, my neighbors are moving in. Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today I decided, because reasons that I'll get into later, this is a bad start. Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I decided to try the 1 chapter tag or challenge or however you want to call it. I've seen lots of people do this. I don't know where it started. I don't know who all has done it. I'm not tagging anyone else in doing it either. I'm just trying to get through all the books I own. In 2020, I bought many books and did not end up reading many books. I challenged myself to try and finish at least almost all of the books that I own and haven't read. So I have a shelf on Goodreads that has all the books that I own and haven't read, and I try to keep up with it and try to keep it up to date as close as possible, and I try to read off of it as much as possible. And many times I fail and borrow books from the library and read those instead, which is great, and I totally recommend people supporting their libraries, but also I shouldn't be buying books and borrowing books as much as I'm doing. I decided to make a change, and before the end of 2020 I wanted to knock off all but at least 15 was the original number, but now I'm looking at 10 as the final number. So I want to go into 2021 with only 10 books on my owned but not read shelf, and I'd like to keep it there or lower for the rest of the year. So what I'm doing is I have approximately 27 books on that shelf as of right now, and I'm going to be trying a chapter of all of them, or as many of them as I can get through. There are some that will not be tried because of reasons, and I'll explain that when I get to those. I do have 1 book from the library that will also be added to that stack that I'll be trying. I am currently reading a book and I'm really enjoying it, and I'm here in it. It's really hard to talk about where I'm at in this book because you read it from 2 directions. Anyways, I'm really enjoying it, and I'm going to be finishing that book. So the whole entire goal with this is to find the book that I will be reading next and to unhaul any books off of this shelf that I don't think I actually want to read. Books that won't be making it onto the challenge are going to include sequels. Well, actually, let's go look at all of my books together. Okay, so the angle sucks, but I think you get the idea. These are all the books that I own, along with some other random junk that doesn't need to be here. There's also some over here. There are 4 right here, and these are probably the 4 that I'm most excited for, but also the newest ones to the collection. I am going to remove all of the junk. Okay, and now we're just looking at books again. So I think this is going to be kind of difficult to get through all of this right now, so I'm going to take it off and we're going to look at it where there's a little bit more space. Okay, so these are the physical books that I am left with, and first things first, I am going to remove all of the sequels that I own that I haven't read the first ones in. Okay, so after that I'm going to remove the only sequel that is on this list that I have read the first one to, because I'm not worried about getting to it. And finally, I'm going to remove the books that I have videos planned for because I'm not going to use them right now. Okay, so that leaves us with this stack. 10 books. I guess I should throw in the library book on top. Here we go. So 11 books that I need to try a chapter of, but I should also mention there are 2 books on this list that I have actually already started and just paused because of reasons. That would be Rage of Dragons and Malice, and both of them were because I had the audiobook, didn't love the audiobook, but wanted to continue on with the story because I liked the story. I will be giving them a second shot. So I thought it would be most beneficial to me to keep track of all of the books and what I'm thinking of them and whether or not I'm keeping them or unhauling them in my journal, which is from Archer and Oliver, and it's like the black pages ones. I'm gonna do that really quickly. This is not going to be super important to you, but I figured I'd let you see my journaling experience, which will be very, very limited. So I just finished this up, And I also just now realized how many books that is. Yeah, this video is probably gonna be a few days, but I wanted to show you actually this chart I made a few weeks ago, because I never showed it on here. I printed out a picture of every single book that I owned and hadn't read, including ARCs, audio, everything, and I have been crossing them off as I go. So grayed out means I read it and blacked out means I unhauled it, and I actually need to update it a little bit. Okay, I have made the executive decision after looking at that pile to not include the 3 books that I have previously started with audio and decided to read physically because I've already started them. I know I like them. I know I'm not going to unhaul them. And the main part of this video is to make sure that I only have books that I like on my shelves that I can like quickly finish up throughout the rest of this year. And then I also decided, because there was only 4 audiobooks and it's kind of not fun to film me listening to audiobooks, that I'm scrapping those as well. So that leaves me with 8 books, and that's what this pile is right here. Not this pile, this pile right here. 8 books that I am going to be trying a chapter of in this video. Kind of nervous because honestly there's a few on this stack that I think might be unhauls, and I'm not happy about that. Okay, so I finally decided on which book to start on, and that is going to be The Last Wish by this man. So it's the first book you're supposed to read in the Witcher series. I'm not super looking forward to it, even though it's been recommended to me personally many times. In fact, my best friend basically is begging me to read it. So I actually found out that my library has the audiobook, and I know I just said that I'm not going to be doing audiobooks for this challenge, but I have a few tasks I need to get done, so I'm gonna listen to the first chapter while I unload the dishwasher and then come back and talk to you guys about how I feel about it. Okay, so I actually just opened the book to take a look at how long the first chapter is, and the first chapter is literally a page and a half. A whole page maybe. So then I was like, okay, well, this still has a 1 on it, so I guess I could read this too. But then do I just read to the 2 or do I read all of that? I'm confused. What is 1 chapter? 42 pages if I want to read to that. Okay, let's see how long the audiobook takes me while I unload the dishwasher. Okay, so I did make it through the 42 pages, and I'm really glad that I stuck with it past that first like page and a half because it was just a sex scene. I know that The Witcher has some graphic scenes in it, and I'm not looking forward to them honestly because I can't stand super graphic sex scenes, especially if they're just not done well. Past that page and a half, it was actually really interesting and I was really into the story, and I'm way more invested into it than I thought I was going to be, which is awesome because I've been avoiding this book for about 2 years now because I just didn't want to read it because I was afraid I was going to hate it. And how do I tell like everyone in my life who loves this series that I hated it? I mean, it's not the best thing in the world. It had some themes in it that I was like meh on, but the writing's really good and I'm interested in the story and I like the characters way more than I thought I was going to. I am actually doing a few more adult tasks that I need to do this weekend. I know you can't see it, but my vacuum cleaner is right next to me. So I checked on my library to see what other books they had in audio format that I'm trying to read, and the only other one that they had was Watch Over Me. So I'm going to listen to the first chapter of this right now while I'm finishing up these tasks, come back and talk to you about it and let you know how it's going. I probably should have told you what The Witcher is about. So The Witcher is about this man named Geralt. I can't remember how it says it, but it's not how you think it's supposed to be said. He is a witcher, which is a witch, basically, a secret witch, whatever, I don't know. And he has to hunt down this demon, basically. I'm sure there's gonna be way more to the story, but that's all that chapter 1 really informed me of. Okay, that was actually a really, really quick chapter. I'm just gonna continue working on cleaning out my vacuum cleaner while we talk. So we are following this girl. I do not remember her name. I think they only mentioned it like one time. And she is a foster child, foster student. I don't remember the exact correct term for that. Apologies. And we know that she has some big secret in her past that has caused her to cause other people harm. We don't know exactly what that harm is or how it translates for her or what it means exactly, but she has been asked to work at this, it sounds like school farm cult almost, and she's going to say yes because she basically really wants a family. She's been alone for so long and unloved, as many foster kids feel. So she has taken this like job position where she like lives and teaches and cooks and sells at a farmer's market, and they give her room and board, and I'm assuming a paycheck. I don't know exactly how old she is, but she's gonna be teaching 9-year-olds. I'm actually really enjoying it. It's got like a nice weirdness to it. It's got a nice vibe to it. One of the things that was mentioned is that the house that she's moving to is haunted, and I don't know if that's in like the literal sense or not. I'm really curious to continue on. Okay, so it has been a while because I stopped to have lunch and then hang out with my roommate, and now I'm getting back into reading, and there's some more junk on my desk. I have officially gotten through the first chapter of these first 2 books, and then I wasn't sure how I wanted to continue because this is just a random stack. So I messaged some of my friends and asked them to pick a number between 1 and 8. And I probably shouldn't have done that because I'd already read the first 2, but they didn't pick 1 or 2. So I am going to be reading the 3rd book next, which is 16 Ways to Defend a Walled City. And then I'm going to be reading the 8th book next, which is Year of the Witching. And then I'm going to be reading the 5th book next, which is 1,000 Deaths of Benn, which I think is going to be one of my favorites on this stack. I actually have to run out for a little bit this evening, but I have finished the first chapter of these 3 books, so I want to talk to you briefly about them before I forget everything. So I have been taking notes, but let's be real, I'm gonna forget stuff because I'm gonna be reading so many books today. So let's start with the first one, which is 16 Ways to Defend a Walled City. What I gathered from this is it's kind of going to be a spunky, fun story about a man who is going to be leading a defense in this city that is going to be attacked. Some of the notes I wrote down were that it was obviously a male author who was writing this book, and that I also felt like it was obviously a white male author who was writing this book. I sometimes say that, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes in a story, having a white male voice is what's appropriate for that story. And I'll get to that actually in just a second. But with this one, it just felt like that was how the author is. And so that's how he wrote the book, and that it felt like he didn't necessarily know how to write a book in another way, or that there were other options to write a book. I didn't necessarily dislike it, but I wasn't grabbed from the very beginning like I wanted to. Honestly, after reading just 1 chapter, which was 10 pages, I felt kind of exhausted. The sentences just felt like, oh my God, I was getting so much information back to back to back to back to back, and the paragraphs were quite long. This is the end of a paragraph, which starts on the previous page, over here. I just felt kind of tired and worn out by the main character. I think the main character is supposed to be overwhelming and is supposed to be giving me all this information, and I think that it was a choice that was taken by the author, but it might not just be for me. Also, one thing that I'm not a huge fan of is this is obviously a story that is being told by the main character's future self. So it's obvious that the battle has been won, everything turned out at least decently, and the main character is looking back and telling us the story of how they defended this city. And I just am kind of tired of those books. I feel like it doesn't allow me to have as much hope in the idea that maybe the main character could die one day, or that something really bad could actually happen to them. If they're telling this story, then odds are it turned out well. So I feel like, to me, I don't necessarily look forward to those kind of stories. And then also, it's just, if you do it right, it can be really good and you get some cool stuff with unreliable narrators, but I don't think that's where this book is going. So then I picked up The Year of the Witching, which I was kind of surprised by. I actually liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to. It was still very YA and very, very, very predictable. Already in chapter 1, we have the main girl who's misunderstood and only has one friend, and that one friend is leaving for a certain reason, and she doesn't know how she's going to get on without her friend, and she doesn't feel like anyone else in the town, but this one boy who no one else understands smiled at her when she made a joke. So, like, you know, we've seen that all before, but the writing is good and it flowed really nicely and I enjoyed it. The subject matter feels unique and different. It feels very like colonial American time, yet the subject matter is about witches and this cult. And so that was actually a really cool combination and I liked it. So I'm definitely going to be continuing on with this one, but I think that it won't be like a super high rating. I'm really excited because the main character is a Black female and the author is a Black female. So I'm loving seeing the diversity in YA fantasy. But like I said, I don't think it's going to be a new favorite or anything of mine, but I think I'm going to enjoy it. I think it's going to surprise me a little bit, and I think I'm gonna pick it up before the end of this year. So the final book that I just started, and actually I do have to apologize, I didn't make it a full first chapter through this one because I ran out of time. I'm loving this. As of right now, this is going to be the book I pick up next because this is so good, so good. And like I just indicated recently, this also is written by a white male author and is about a white male who is cocky and snarky, just very similar to 16 Ways. But in this one, it's done really well. I felt like the sentence structure was set up in a way that it was more believable. It felt like the author was very obviously aware of the fact of his like white male privilege and was writing almost in a parody kind of sense. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Ocean's 11 because there's a heist right from the beginning. Like there's this con job that's going down and the whole entire book is going to be a big con job, which I love and I'm super into. So that might be one reason why I'm enjoying this more than 16 Ways, because 16 Ways is a war story and I don't like those as much. But I'm really enjoying it and so far it's my favorite. I really like the main character. I really like the writing. Honestly, I'm only 20 pages in and it made me want to go and pick up the second and third one. If you don't know about this series, I did talk about it in a video rather recently, but this series was published originally by the author and has just now been picked up by Orbit, and so they're re-releasing them all a month apart. This one came out in October, the sequel came out in November, and the third one's coming out in December. I believe I might be a month off with those. I know the first two are out already, and I think the third one is just about to be out. I might have to go pick up the sequel, which means I'll just be adding to my list of books that I need to finish before the end of the year. So I'm home. Yeah, I have a different outfit on. Don't worry, I'll get my NASA shirt on in like 2 seconds, but I made a mistake. The whole entire point of this video was to get through as many books as possible, to figure out if I wanted to unhaul anything or if I wanted to, you know, continue reading stuff, to get as many books off my shelf as possible before the end of the year. I freaking loved the 1,000 Deaths of Ardor and Benn so much that after I was done with my plans, we were right next to Barnes & Noble, and so I went and picked up the sequel. I'm 20 pages into the book and I already want the sequel. Like, what? Yeah, there's probably gonna be a video coming up on my channel soon with me talking about reading these books and the experience, because the third one, The Last Lives of Ardor and Benn comes out December 1st. God, I might read all 3 of them before the end of December. Okay, a quick recap, mostly for me, not so much for you. This is the pile of books that I own / borrowed from the library that I decided to listen to the audiobook for by borrowing it from my library. This is the stack of books that my book club randomly selected for me to try next, and I have read the first chapter of them. This is the stack that I am going to try first chapter of right now. Let's hope that I can get through all these tonight. If not, tomorrow morning, first thing, I'll be reading all of them. Okay, so it's actually been a few days because what I was afraid of what was going to happen actually ended up happening. What's this? Oh great, there's a new cut on my finger. So I've always been really worried about doing this challenge because I know that I get into the mindset that if I start a book, I've started a book, which means I'm either currently reading it or I'm going to DNF it, and there's no in between. There's no trying out a book or sampling a book or like reading a chapter and then waiting a few months and then continuing reading. So my dumb brain decided that I was currently reading all of these books and I couldn't bring myself to start the next 3 because I was currently reading all of these books. So I had a little talk with myself and convinced myself to calm down a little bit, but part of the calming down meant that I needed to take a few days to myself and finish all of the books I was actually reading. And as of tonight, I have officially finished every single book I was currently reading. I am ready now to sit down and try the first chapter of the last 3 that I need to try out. So I'm going to sit here and I'm going to do it and I'm going to be happy about it. I have not been sleeping well this past weekend and I am absolutely falling asleep right now and it is only 8 p.m. So I'm gonna have to call it. I officially had 5 more pages left in this first chapter, but I feel like I've gotten a good enough grasp of it that I know how I'm feeling about the book. Let's talk about that one last. I started out with Thorn, which is a YA fantasy. I have read another book by this author and I really enjoyed that book. So I picked up all of her works and I've been slowly reading through them, and this is the last one that I had to get through. Didn't absolutely love it, but I didn't absolutely hate it either. I know that it's going to be a retelling of, I think it's called The Goose Girl, which is a story I am not familiar with at all, but I felt like I was interested enough. The writing was good. The characters were kind of average for a YA book, honestly, but I don't have a good idea of what the plot is going to be. So we start out in this book with this girl. She's a princess, and this king of this other realm, this much more powerful realm, has come to visit her and her family, and she had to dress up to go to a party to greet him, and that was kind of it. We also know that she apparently has some kind of problem with the truth where she like always tells it and gets in trouble because of that. I'm interested, but it didn't totally grip me as much as I was hoping it would. And then I picked up this book, which weirdly enough gripped me a lot, especially for it being a sci-fi, a futuristic sci-fi story. It is told in a not too distant future where people sell their blood in exchange with the government for everything they could possibly need. So basically it kind of sounds like there's going to be some kind of weirdness where blood is being used for some kind of sinister reason. I don't totally know why I get that vibe, but I do get that vibe. And we're following one woman, older woman, which I really love, and she's a mom, and that's something I've been really getting into recently in works of speculative fiction. And she is a blood collector, so people come to her throughout the day. She has like a little workstation and she collects the blood, and people get paid different amounts depending on their blood type. And I think society kind of reflects around your blood type, making you more prestigious or less prestigious. I'm definitely interested in it. She ran into this man starting off. Of course, something went wrong in the first chapter. She ran into this man who is like a higher up manager and kind of brushed off all the problems and made them all go away, and she's really suspicious of all of that. I have absolutely no proof, but I just have this weird feeling in my gut that this book is going to be about vampires. I guess I'll get to see if it is or isn't. And then finally I picked up A Time of Dread. I hit myself in the head with it. I finally picked up A Time of Dread, which is something I am really thrilled to be getting to, and it's on my prediction list for a 5-star read. I am only a few pages in, honestly, but I really enjoy it. The writing's easy, the characters are good and believable. I like what's going on, although I don't totally know if I can explain totally what's going on. So it seems like there's this war between two different realms of mankind, or some different clans of mankind, and these angels and demons have gotten kind of in the way of that war and are kind of basically telling them whether or not they can have the war, aren't letting humans do their thing, and are making their issues onto the humans. So I know we're going to be following lots of different characters, but from just the first chapter I've only started following one character, so I feel like this was a bad book to try first chapter of anyways, because I need to really read like 50 pages of an epic multiple POV fantasy before I can really understand and talk to the camera about what it's going to be about. But I really liked it, and I'm really curious to continue on with it. I am going to now put these books into the order of most excited to read into least excited to read. And I will say that I am excited to read all of them. As of right now, I'm not going to unhaul any of them. They're all really good, really interesting books. I might DNF some of them at some point. I don't know. Should I put them in the order of how much I enjoyed the first chapter, or of how much I think I'm going to enjoy the whole entire book? That would be different orders. I think I'm going to put it into how much I think I will enjoy the entire book. Okay, so this is the order that I'm putting them into, and I will show you a better shot than this, but this is the order I'm putting them into. Really curious about that. I think that I wouldn't have predicted that from before reading all of their first chapters, honestly. But my number one slot is The Thousand Deaths of Ardor and Benn, which I probably would have predicted was going to be near the top, if not actually at the top. And as I already told you, I have picked up the sequel, and December 1st I'm going and picking up the third one, so that'll be exciting. And then right underneath that is A Time of Dread. So, you know, it's probably not really a shock to anyone that someone who loves high epic, intense fantasy and world building and great characters and heists and cons, all that stuff, would put some great epic fantasies at the top of their list. I'm really tired, so I'm gonna go to bed now. I recommend you go to bed too, because wherever you are right now, I'm willing to bet you haven't gotten enough sleep. Take my advice, go to bed, stop reading, stop watching YouTube. It's bedtime. I should probably do my outro first. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Let me know if you've read any of these books. I'd be really curious to know what you think, and if you enjoyed this challenge, because I think it'd be fun to do again, although I hope I never pick up enough books that I would need to do something like this again. Maybe I can do it again with less books in the future. I appreciate all of you. Go to bed now, because I don't remember how my outro goes, but until next time, I will talk to you in the comments. Bye-bye.